Hello everyone, this is Carla and welcome back to the studio, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Step It Up Saturday. So for this Saturday, I will be using the Artistically inked bundle. This is a cling stamp set, and the images that are in this set give you the feel as if you had used alcohol inks. I'm also going to use its coordinating dies called Artistic, and you have two dies that will cut out like a detailed type of image, and then these other pieces will die cut the stamped images. So for my first card, I am my cardstock pieces. I have a piece of Azure Afternoon. This measures 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4.25. I have a piece of Starry Sky that measures 5.25 by 4. I have a piece of Basic White. This measures 5 1/8 by 3 7/8. I have a 5 by 4 inch scrap of Basic White. I have a 4.25 by 2 inch scrap of Basic White as well. So to start, I'm going to fold and burnish my card base. Okay, bring in my bone folder. Okay, I'm going to set that aside. And my piece of Starry Sky, I'm going to set that aside as well. And on this piece, this is, this is the 5 1/8 by 3 7/8 inch piece. And I'm going to emboss it with this embossing folder, and it comes from the Basics 3D embossing folders, and this can be found in our online exclusives. So I'm going to set this aside because I'm going to be doing all my die cutting and embossing at the same time. So once this is embossed, I'm going to then adhere it to my Starry Sky piece. So I'll set that aside. And actually, no, we're going to need this because I have to add some stamping to it. So I'm going to bring in this stamp here and my greeting that says happy birthday. So actually for both of these cards, they're going to be birthday cards. So the colors for this card is Azure Afternoon, Starry Sky, Granny Apple Green, and Garden Green. So I'm going to open up my Azure Afternoon, and I do have some blending brushes. Now these are ones that I purchased off of Amazon, but Stampin' Up! Does sell blending brushes both in the larger and the smaller sizes. So I'm actually going to open up my Starry Sky ink, and I'm going to ink up my happy birthday. And I'm going to stamp that down in the bottom right hand corner. Let me move this down just a little bit so I can get it straight. Like so. Okay. And then I'm going to bring in this stamp. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to ink this up, but then I'm going to come in with my blending brush, and I'm just going to kind of brush this ink into the stamp so it's not so dark, and I'm going to just puff on it, and I'm going to stamp one over in this corner at an angle like so, and then I'm going to do it again and use my brush to kind of just brush in the ink on my stamp. And then I'll come in over on this side and stamp it again. Like so. And then I'm going to put that aside because I'm going to emboss it in this embossing folder. Okay, so then on my larger piece of cardstock, I am going to stamp this flower. And what I'm going to do with this one, I'm going to kind of do the same technique. So let me bring in my Starry Sky as well. So I'm going to ink up this stamp, and then I'm going to brush the ink on it. And then I'm going to bring in my other brush, put some ink on in my Starry Sky, and I'm just going to tap it some in the middle of my flower. I'm just huff on it just to reactivate the ink, and I'll stamp it again. You can see that it's got like this two-tone image to it. Okay, so then I have my Stampin' Scrub, and I'm going to have to clean my stamp each time I go to do this. And I'm going to do this 6 times. And so we need 6 of these flowers. Okay, clean it again. If you stamp these images and you have too much ink, so if your ink pad is like way too inky, what'll happen, your images will just look very blobby looking, and you won't get all of that detail. Okay. So by brushing the ink after we inked up the stamp, it just gives it a bit of a softer look. Okay. And with the darker color, I'm just tapping it on my stamp. Okay. And then we got one more. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside. And then I'm going to die cut using the coordinating die, which is this one right here. So I'll set that aside, and I'll close up these inks. Okay, and then I'm going to bring in my greens for my leaf. Okay, and then here is my leaf stamp. And then let me move these brushes out of the way. And then I have brushes for my green. So I'm going to start off by inking up my my double leaf stamp. There is another stamp in here that's just a single leaf, and I'm going to brush the ink on that. And then I'm going to take my smaller one, I'm going to tap it into my garden green, and I'm going to kind of brush some of that color into my leaves. And I'll stamp one over in this corner. It has a nice variegated color. The garden green and the granny apple blend together really well. Okay, so I'll ink it up again in my Granny Apple. And I'll brush the ink. Bring in my garden green. Just kind of brush some of that on here. And then I'll stamp that in this corner. Like so. That's really, really nice. I love how that blended together. This really is a fun stamp set. Just the color combinations that you can use on this are they're just endless. Just brush that some. Bring in my garden green. And then stamp that again. Like so. So there are our leaves. And I will die cut that with its coordinating die. So let me just quickly clean these up. Okay, and close these because we're done. We're done stamping and we're done with our ink. So let me just move these out of the way. Okay. And I'm going to bring in my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. And I'm going to emboss and die cut. And I will be right back. Okay, so let me bring in my pieces. So I'm going to bring in my liquid glue. This is the Tombow multi-purpose glue that I had put in a fine tip glue bottle. And I have a link to this in the description of this video. I'm just going to add some to the back of my embossed piece. And I'm going to adhere this onto my piece of Starry Sky. And try not to get glue all over the place. Okay. Okay. And then I'm going to take this and adhere it to my card base. And I'll center that, like so. Okay, and then I'm going to bring in my flowers and my leaves. So for 3 of these flowers, we are going to take them and we're going to crumple them up. Yes, all that stamping and die cutting, and we're crumpling them all up. We're going to add some dimension to these flowers. These are going to go on top of the other ones that I stamped. Okay, so then I'm going to uncrumple them like so. Okay, and then I'm going to bring in these pieces. Now, on these, you can see that on one end it kind of indents in. So what I'm going to do with these crumpled pieces, we're just going to put it on the opposite way. So that little bumps down the bottom there. I'll place this like so. So I'm going to take and bring in a little bit of glue, and I'm just going to add some in the centers of these flowers. And then I'm going to bring in these pieces, and I'm just going to lay them right on top, just to give these a little bit more dimension. Okay. And then I'm going to bring in my dimensional. So I'm going to use my last one from this sheet. And then I got another sheet here. Whoa, almost put on the wrong end. Wrong side. No, no. We want to see the pretty flowers. Okay. So then I'm going to arrange these on my card base. So I'm going to add one like up here. I'm not going to press them down yet. When they're in the position that I like them in, then I will go ahead and press them down. Okay. And then for these leaves, I'm going to add some liquid glue to the back of them. And I'm going to tuck these right under my flowers. Really like how that one leaf came out, where you see more of that darker green in there. Again, this is a really fun stamp set to play with. I mean, just play with different colors and see how they look together. Like the pinks and the oranges would look pretty too. Okay, so I like where these are, and I'm going to press everything down. Okay, and let me close up my glue. And then I'm going to bring in my Wink of Stella, and I'm just going to do a really quick brush of some Wink of Stella on them. I'm not going to worry about making sure every spot on this cardstock is colored. I'm just doing a really quick brush of the sparkle on it. Okay. And then I'm going to bring in my 2022 to 2024 in color pearls. And even though we didn't use this color, I'm going to use the Tahitian Tide pearls, because these will work well. The color works well with the colors that we used. And then we'll add one more right over here. Okay, so that is our first card. On to our second. Okay, so for our second card, there's a lot more detail and a whole lot more stamping that's involved in this one. So we're going to start off with a piece of fresh freesia. This measures 11 by 4 1/4 and it's scored at 5 1/2. I have a piece of gorgeous grape that measures 5 by 3 3/4. I have a piece of basic white. This measures 4 3/4 by 3 1/2. Then I have another scrap of I have a scrap of basic white. This measures 4 1/2 by 4. And in the set of dies is this detailed flower die. So I'm going to die cut that. So I'm going to set that aside. Then I have, I have a 3 1/2 by 3 1/2 inch scrap of basic white. I'll be stamping my large flower using the same technique as before on that piece. Then on this piece of 5 by 2 basic white, I'm going to stamp the same flower we used before 3 times on that. And then I have a 2 1/2 by 2 1/4 inch scrap of basic white, and I'm going to stamp 2 of these leaves on that. And then, because I got so many little pieces here. And then on this 2 1/4 by 1 1/4 inch scrap, I am going to stamp this 3 cluster of flowers twice on here. And then on this little piece, I'm going to stamp this little flower center on that. So kind of keep this all together. So I'm going to start off with folding and burnishing my card base. Okay. And then on this piece of basic white, I'm going to bring in the same die that we used before. Now with this card, we're going to use Fresh Freesia, Orchid Oasis, along with the Garden Green and the Granny Apple Green color for the leaves again. So for this, I'm going to take my Fresh Freesia. I'm going to ink this up. Move it out of the way so I don't get ink on it. And I'm going to bring in my brush, and this is what the Stampin' Up! Blending brushes look like. And I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to brush the color on there. And then I'm going to add it at an angle up here. And then I'm going to ink it up again. Brush my ink. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to stamp it again, just turning the stamp. Most of this is going to be covered up with all the other elements that I'll have on it. So I'm going to leave that open, and I'm going to open up my Orchid Oasis. And then on this piece, I'm going to take the Happy Birthday sentiment again. I'm going to ink that up in my Orchid Oasis. And I'm going to stamp that right down at the bottom and in the middle. Just like that. Okay. And then I'm going to bring in my glue. And I'm going to adhere this to my gorgeous grape piece. Like so. And then I'm going to adhere this onto my Fresh Freesia base. We got it straight. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside, and then we're going to stamp our flowers. Okay, so for my bigger flower, I'm going to ink it up in the fresh Freesia. Whoops, and I just put my finger in the ink. Not what I wanted to do. Not what I wanted to do. Okay, and then I have my brush for my purple as well. So I'm going to brush the ink on this stamp, and I'm going to put some Orchid Oasis on my brush, and I'm just going to tap some of this color in. I'm going to huff on it just to activate the ink if it had started to dry. Okay, and that's how that came out. Very pretty. So I'm going to set this aside with its dye. And then on this piece, I'm going to ink it up in the fresh Freesia. Brush my ink. Bring in the Orchid Oasis. That. And then I got my stamp and scrub. I'm going to clean my stamp again. Okay. And then actually for this third one, I'm going to do it straight up in the Orchid Oasis. Like so. Okay. So I'm going to set that aside with its dye. Put that aside. And then I'm going to stamp these little flowers, but I am not going to do different colors on them. I'm just going to stamp them with the Orchid Oasis. And I'm going to stamp one of the clusters over in this corner. And then I'm going to stamp another set of 3 of these in the other corner. Like so. You can see more of the detail in it when it doesn't have that much ink on it. So I'll set that aside with that dye. And then let's see what's next. Then for this little piece here, ink it up in my fresh Freesia. Brush it. And then I'm going to add a little bit of the Orchid Oasis. And stamp that. And you really don't see any of the fresh Freesia on that. So that's fine. So there's the dye for that one. We'll set that aside. And then, okay, my leaves. Wondering where did that go? Well, let me close these 2 up. We're done. We're done with these colors. So let me move them out of the way. And let me also move these brushes, so we don't get any ink on our cardstock. Okay, so then I'm going to bring in my greens again. And this time I'm only going to stamp 2 of these. Okay. That. Let's add some garden green. Up on it. And I'll stamp this in this corner. Ooh, very, very pretty. And then I'll clean and stamp. And we'll repeat the process again. Ink it up. Brush it. And I'll add some of my garden green. Okay, very, very pretty. That just blows me away. Okay, and there's the die for that. So let's close these up. And we're done with all of our stamping, and let me move the blending brushes out of the way. Okay, so for this part, I'm going to do all of this die cutting, and I will be right back. Okay, so off camera, I had removed all these little pieces out of this intricate die. They came out all very easily. I just wanted to save some time with the video. So most of this is going to be hidden actually on our card base. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in my stamp and seal, and I'm going to add some right in the middle. And then I'm going to take my piece and I'm just going to add that, let's see, right about, say like right here. And like I said, I mean, it's a shame. It's a very pretty die cut piece, and I'm covering it up with all of these flowers. So let me bring in my dimensionals, and I'm going to start adding some on the back of my flowers. Let's see, I just need one for these. And then we'll need our minis. So I'm bringing my take your pick tool. It's easier to place these smaller ones. So I'm going to put it on that one, and then on these little ones. Okay. And then our medium sized ones will add to that too. Our teeny tiny ones. Those are going to get glued directly down to our card base. Okay. So then let's start placing all of our elements. Okay, so for this bigger flower, my backings. And I am going to add that right up in this corner. So, and I'm not going to press really hard on my pieces. So let's see what we got here. So this is the one that's more of Starry Sky. So I'm going to add that over here. And then I'll take this piece and I will add this one. Let's see. Kind of like up there. And then this one. I'll place this one about there. And then our center piece for that one. We'll add that right there. And then let's see, for our leaves, I'm going to bring in my liquid glue. I'm going to take this one and I'm going to tuck this under like so. Okay. And then this one, add some glue on here. And then I will place this one right under here. Okay, so I'm kind of happy with where all that is, so I'm just going to press it down. Okay, and then for these larger little flowers, I'm going to place them these corners here. Okay, and then medium one right there. And this one right here. And then for my little teeny tiny ones, I'm going to add just a drop of glue up here and down here. We're done with the glue. I'm bringing my Take Your Pick tool and I'm going to use the putty end. And I'm just going to place these down. Like so. Okay. And then I'm going to bring in my iridescent pearls basic jewels. And I'm going to add a few onto my card. So I'm going to add one down here. And then I'm going to add one right up in here. And another one tucked in right over here. Okay, and then I'm going to bring in my Wink of Stella. And just like I did on my last card, I'm not going to go with just perfect. I'm just going to do just a quick brushing of the Wink of Stella on these flowers. Okay. All right, so that is our second card. Very pretty, very detailed. Because of the layers on it and being just just for the layers, you may have to put extra postage on your envelope if you're mailing this, but Really pretty. I love the variegation of all the colors. So let me remove this and let me bring in our other project. So we started off with this one with using our blues. Very pretty. And then we did this one where we stepped it up a little bit more with some detail and just lots of pretty purplish colors. So if you liked this week's video, please give the video a thumbs up. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel. It does help me in not only building the channel, but also in building my Stampin' Up! Business. So I thank you again for joining me. And until next time, have a blessed one. Bye bye.